This is the story of a river in southern Europe that brings together a wider variety of animals than any other. From forests high in the mountains to flatlands and wetlands that seem set in Africa. On its banks, geography seems to make no sense because species from very different worlds gather there. Guided by the water that keeps them alive, the inhabitants of the great river of Andalusia coexist with life and death in a game that never ends. Barely 500 years ago, no one knew that the Earth was round until a group of exhausted sailors arrived at this spot in Spain after completing history's first trip around the world. For the old Arab wise men, it was Wad el-Kabir, the Great River. But that wasn't always the case. Our story begins among the mists of the Cazorla and Segura mountain ranges, 700 kilometers upriver, in the peaks where the river is born. The herds of mouflon and red deer are restless because when the mists lift, she flies overhead. A golden eagle inspects the forest. But something else is happening. Down there, everyone knows the characteristic sound of autumn. It's a well-known secret. The red deer are in the rut. The ground is a violent place. It's time to decide who is in charge. It's not easy to be a stag. Only the strongest can reproduce, while the rest have to wait another year if they survive. The winner has staked his claim. The ground finally looks clear. Nonetheless, it's not a safe place for climbing rodents. He's running for a reason. Eating nuts has made him really thirsty. He has excellent eyesight. He stands upright to check that he's not in any danger, because on this side of the river, a drink of water can be very costly. The fallow deer, close but somewhat smaller cousins of the red deer, are beginning their courtship fights. In the deer family, a male's large horns mean that he will have strong, healthy offspring because they will grow on the extra food of each individual. But these mountains in Andalusia are above all the place where our protagonist starts her journey. The mountains break waters, and the Guadalquivir River is born wrapped in pine trees. Its crib is made of bare rock. Its waters run swiftly here, white with foam. As the days grow shorter and there is less sunlight, the trees withdraw the energy from their leaves, which then die. Their green tint fades and they fall to the ground, painting it the color of winter. In the Sierra de Cazorla, this means trouble, above all for red foxes like this young female. She's hungry, but she also has a great memory, and that's why she remembers the exact spot where she buried a fallow deer leg a few weeks ago. But while she's digging up her treasure, she's being observed by an enormous male. A quick bite, because there's not enough for two here. The intruder glares at her, and he's stronger than she is. It isn't worth getting hurt over a mere thigh, and she decides that prudence is the better part of valor. But her belly is still growling, and when that happens, foxes are capable of anything. The Spanish ibex are in the rut. While the adults are distracted, maybe she could make off with one of these tender lambs. That's not a good idea. A hungry stomach gives bad advice. Winter falls on the mountains, literally. Then the forest is swathed in white. The river feeds off the snow, but for the little fox, it's the worst of scenarios. That leg of deer that was stolen from her was her last hope. Keeping a constant body temperature is a luxury that she can't afford much longer. But this is Spain, and the Mediterranean sun gives the prisoners of the forest a reprieve. Although the weather's still cold, the snow doesn't last long. Nevertheless, for some, it's already too late. The snowstorm claimed a red deer hind, and as it melts, the white mantle is pulled back to reveal the gift of its body, sending messages out on the wind. A mature male is the first to arrive. In spite of his anxiousness, he first cautiously and intelligently checks out all the smells. He knows that this could be a trap. Throughout the forest, the pine trees channel the scent of meat, and canids can detect it from kilometers away. Two females are close by. The larger one decides to get the male to let her eat some with him, and she adopts gestures of submission to convince him. Foxes communicate amongst themselves with facial expressions. The other, it's her, has survived the snow, but she's still getting the short end of the stick. 3 are a crowd. She has to choose between a growling stomach and her growling companions. Sheer hunger gives her the courage to try. The male ignores her. This is something the female should solve between the two of them. But the forest has eyes. The golden eagle can see it all, and the land is suspiciously quiet down there. Others know why. The man is able to see that the eagle and the foxes are making too much noise. The queen keeps looking. She can't hear them. She needs movement to detect what's going on. She reads between the pines. She knows something is happening. The young female, younger than the others, has had enough and decides to give up. The male comes back. Those who are eating get back to business. All she has gotten for her trouble is new wounds. But the queen decides one's destiny in the forest. When she spreads her wings, someone is going to pay. Under the cover of the treetops, it's hard to see her approaching. But at the last moment, a slight buzz gives her away. Birds of prey learn from their mistakes. Humans don't. The noble predator confronts her prey face to face. Nonetheless, some consider foxes an enemy, a competitor that has to be exterminated, and they administer death by the dose, dressing meat with lethal spices. They are poachers who believe that foxes steal the game they hunt. The young female sees the whole thing. The foxes that were eating have driven her off, but this time destiny is going to play in her favor. The others return to keep eating, without realizing that the deer has been laced with strychnine, a forbidden poison that will sow death throughout the forest. In a short period of time, the trapper's message will first make them very thirsty, and shortly after that, their lights will go out forever. This morning, the Guadalquivir eliminates the evidence of a crime. Foxes have been famous for their astuteness since ancient times. They know how to link up acts and their consequences. They remember it all. They learn. In the end, the river they crossed wasn't this one. They crossed over to the other side of life. But she will never forget that. She doesn't owe anything to anyone, but she's on the brink of ruin. She wanders in a pack that has 3 members: hunger, fear, and herself. That's why she decides to leave, following the only trail that breaks through the mountains. In a place without a horizon like this one, the only way out is to follow the water. Only the Guadalquivir can get her out of there. On its banks, at least she'll have plenty to drink along the way. The journey of two survivors begins. An olive grove is an orderly forest. Trumpets from the north fill the land ahead with sound. They're cranes. They arrive in huge flocks from Scandinavia, crossing Europe until they reach one of Spain's most characteristic landscapes, the dehesas, or open oak pasture lands. And this is why they come here. Holm oaks and cork oaks drop their acorns precisely when snow is forming on the horizon of the rest of the continent, and very little is left to eat. Hordes of thousands of cranes fly south over the Pyrenees every year to feed on these very nuts. The Guadalquivir matures as it crosses the dehesas of the Sierra Morena, the place where, for as long as people can remember, fugitives and outlaws have sought refuge. Following the course of the river, the fox enters a disturbing territory where a strange smell fuels her fear. These large spaces are populated by herds of deer. It's the Serengeti of Europe, the greatest explosion of life on the Mediterranean. But this place is also the hunting grounds of the fox's worst enemy, the Iberian lynx, the invisible cat. It has chosen this rabbit, which attempts the impossible, to listen to absolute silence. It barely touches the ground. It is made of the landscape. The Iberian lynx is slowly backing away from the brink of extinction, thanks to breeding stations and to its hilly habitat being repopulated with rabbits after they were decimated by a serious epidemic in the last century. The ancient Iberian peoples called it Lubican, the yellow-eyed killer, the guardian of the places forbidden to men. In exchange for just one rabbit a day, the master keeps the countryside free of foxes. Our wanderer will spend another bad night chewing on uncertainty. Perhaps tomorrow she'll have better luck. Dawn brings no comfort to our traveler. She can smell members of her family with whom she has been feuding for thousands of years. This isn't the peace that she was looking for when she left Cazorla. The hounds, filled with loyalty for their masters, are hot on her trail. But luckily for her, a prey that's much more attractive to them convinces them to switch targets. Not even the king of the dehesa is safe when the canine mobs are combing the hills. But today, it is the wild boar's turn, and his race will soon be over. She should keep going. This isn't a good place for her. Near the river, the gunshots have tipped off the griffin vultures. They know what that means. Somewhere down there, men are going to leave them a gift. The paths in the air. The hungry pilgrims arrive to pay their respects to the deceased and to clear him away in a matter of minutes. When their brother scouts the scene and gives his consent, the buff-colored angels fall from the heavens, the skydivers of death. First, they are shadowy, then voracious. The griffin vulture's communion recycles the body and blood of the deer. But there will be no miracle. A single red deer isn't enough to feed so many vultures, and the frenzy escalates as the meat becomes scarcer. Then someone has to lay down the law. A grand appearance. A black cloak of almost 3 meters. They know he's coming. They've all been warned. From up above, he blesses the table, and he drops in, performing the dance of the one who gives the orders. The Eurasian black vulture doesn't share its meals with just anyone. It's the largest bird of prey in Europe, 10 kilograms of fury that doesn't like to eat entrails as the griffin vultures do. It prefers clean red meat without hair nor bones. It's the gourmet of corpses, and it can afford to be. That's why it drives off all the other birds with the authority of its size. It has arrived late to the feast. They haven't left him much, and he is in a rage. As far as he's concerned, this banquet is over. Once past the Sierra Morena, the Guadalquivir grows calmer as it wends its way through the countryside near the city of Córdoba. But for the exile, forced to travel by day, running is all she has. The great river marks her destiny, Its banks are all the reference points she needs. Foxes ask little of life. They are great survivors and adapt to anything. As long as the wind blows, there will be foxes on Earth. We are in the land of the Tartessians, the Turta, the herdsmen who raised red bulls. They wore helmets with horns like those attributed to the Vikings, and offered their bronze swords and shields to the water. The same water in which these black storks are resting during their migration from Africa. Their more abundant white cousins also arrive by the thousands. They have just crossed the Strait of Gibraltar and need the embrace of the Guadalquivir to regain their strength. But not all of them will be able to complete their annual odyssey. One of them has a broken leg and is unable to stand up. Her mate, who has been by her side for years, stays with her, waiting for her to get better. But that isn't going to happen. She tries, but the Guadalquivir claims her for itself. The mud traps her, and she has no strength left. The flock departs, and the farewell is but a glance. In some town in Europe, one stork will not return to the church tower this year, and perhaps someone will miss her, or perhaps not. This isn't going to be just another night for our traveler. Soon she will have another reason to fight. Tomorrow, she won't be quite so alone. A brief encounter with a male will change her life forever. For this garden dormouse, however, going out at night is a very risky thing to do. A poisonous snake is waiting for its dinner to arrive, a snub-nosed viper. Meeting up with the viper would also be lethal for the fox. She treads carefully because the night is full of traps. This trapdoor spider likes to dine at home, but she is very particular about who is wandering around out there. When she detects her victims, she makes them an invitation that they can't refuse. The night on the Guadalquivir belongs to the small spotted genet. Evolutionarily, they look like a cross between a dog and a cat, except that they are much older than either. They are the only members of their family in Europe, but they find themselves in a somewhat uncomfortable position because, thanks to their size, they are both predators and prey. These are looking in the holes in a cliff along the river that are about to be occupied. These male bee-eaters have just flown in from Africa and immediately take up residence in the holes that have been abandoned for months. The competition for a hole is fierce because if they don't have one, the females will reject them. The colony is situated on top of an ancient Roman workshop that made amphoras. But what the birds are anxious about right now is cleaning up their holes before the ladies arrive. After all that work, they have the odd custom of taking a sun bath to eliminate the parasites on their backs. Up close, the courtship of little ringed plovers is more violent. Two males have been smitten by the same female, and one of them has to go. Wad el-Kabir, the great river of the ancient Arabs, was once the home of a giant that weighed more than 100 kilograms. It's been years since anybody has seen one, but it may still be down there. A prehistoric fish, the sturgeon. The eggs that female sturgeon bear are one of the world's most highly prized delicacies. There was a caviar factory on this river, but it shut down in 1967. It drew its business from the bellies of the colossal fish that swam upriver to spawn. It's unlikely they'll ever come back. On the riverbanks, the little ringed plover has driven off the other suitor, and the winner performs his mating dance for the female, who sits in judgment. If she doesn't like how he dances, she can always choose the other fellow. Meanwhile, the little fox has been getting by on snails and worms for weeks. But her body is demanding that she hunt something bigger. She needs hemoglobin, iron, and high-quality proteins. After the dance, the male decides to try another trick. He forms a parasol with his body to protect his lady from the sun. And it works. The black storks broke up the flock that arrived from Africa weeks ago, and the mating pairs have spread out into their own secret corners of the river for a good reason. Four enormous pterodactyls that are always hungry and thirsty. Black storks prefer the trees. Shy birds, they don't like to have humans nearby, like their white cousins. But downriver, there's another nest that's not so peaceful. Big Brother, who hatched from his egg 3 days before his sibling, is trying to kill his baby brother so that their parents will only feed him when they come back with prey. The booted eagle has to bring back to the nest all the food he can in order to save his younger child. Only this rabbit can calm his older child's fratricidal rage. but he doesn't manage to calm him down. The younger one won't be able to hold on much longer if his mother comes back empty-handed. As she looks on helplessly, at just 2 weeks of age, one of her children is going to kill the other. She tries to distract him with bits of meat from an earlier prey, but it doesn't work. The mother can't get a moment's of respite for her littler one. When he dies, Cain will eat him. In the meantime, flowers have bloomed around the traveler along the river. This is the season of easy eating, because natural selection needs jaws like hers to execute the least fit. There they are. No more worms and frogs. Her belly demands fresh red blood. Common rabbits are native to the Iberian Peninsula, and from here they were introduced all over the world. But she needs only one, like that one. Distracted by its world of light and color, eating flowers as if nothing was happening. There are a lot of them, but they're not very smart. Sooner or later, one of them will make a mistake. Its last mistake. Her first hot meal in weeks. Then the sleeping sprites in the ground become orchids, waking up, shining. The green creatures between two worlds don't want to be princes, at least not yet. Mediterranean tree frogs were born to sing. And inside, in the soundless kingdom, you have to have guts to survive. These fish live nowhere else in the world. They're called salinetes. They are a wonder of evolutionary adaptation because they can live both in fresh water and in water that is 3 times saltier than seawater. But their world is very fragile, and they are being pushed out by gambusias, the aggressive invasive fish introduced by man to eliminate mosquito larvae. But something else is down there. It's a dragonfly nymph that is just itching to go through metamorphosis. To earn its wings, it finds itself forced to kill. It absorbs the body fluids of its victim, but it leaves a tribute to the water where it was born. Above, mosquitoes are springing up. Centuries ago, they spread malaria here, even forcing the Spaniards to abandon the castles and fortresses. One of these little insects was responsible for the death of the greatest emperor man has ever known, Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire and the first of the Spanish Empire. With her stomach full, the little wanderer is in high spirits and has renewed energy to continue accompanying her friend, the river. She passes by the largest colony of white storks in Europe and detects a special scent. Her final destination may be near. An absolute paradise. The place where the great river forgets its name. The Doñana marshlands. Here, everything is different. The land seems to be full of life, but the earth traps her feet, and the water sometimes has a bite to it. Salt. Doñana, the dream of a river. The Guadalquivir's wetlands are the most important bird sanctuary on the continent, where close to 1 million birds belonging to more than 300 species spend the winter, breed, or pass through every year, making this estuary Europe's largest ecological reserve. The purple heron is one of them. It breaks the mirror with its harpoon to steal fish from the water. A few meters away from the big wading bird, a purple swamp hen, a vegetarian that prefers pulling up tender shoots, is demonstrating its great strength. But no bird is as amazing as this one, the greater flamingo. They filter the water with their beaks as whales do. They're nomads that have to take great care of their plumage so they can travel up to 300 kilometers in a single night, which is why the ancient peoples consider them to be the mythical phoenix, the bird that was reborn from its own ashes. That is exactly what our traveler has done. She has reinvented herself in this new Eden where everything is new to her. This ability to adapt is the key to her zoological family's evolutionary success. Because if she could fly up like a phoenix, she would see that she has reached paradise. Legend has it that the sun represents truth, and that if you fly too close to it, your wings will burn and you will fall back to earth. That's why their feathers burn as they fly over Doñana, and the reason why flamingos represent resurrection. Their name comes from the Latin word flamma, which means flame. Right where the Guadalquivir meets the Atlantic Ocean, the Kingdom of the Sands emerges from that struggle between the two bodies of water. Here, the ancients spoke of the 5 dark winds. The dunes try to devour the pine trees in their path, while the pines fight to hold them back. This battle creates a landscape found nowhere else in the world. Forests on sand, a hybrid ecosystem that is half African, half European, that shares species even with China, like these azure-winged magpies, which are found only here and in parts of Asia. No one has yet been able to explain why. There are also little dragons. Chameleons kill at a distance and always shoot straight to the head. Their ancient name means dragon of the ground, which is rather odd for an animal that lives up in the branches. Or maybe not. Our traveler has walked more than 700 kilometers from the Sierra de Cazorla, following her master, the river, and has exchanged the snow for warm sand. But her new summer coat isn't going to free her from facing the cat with the paintbrush ears, which also lives here. They are close enemies, the heirs to two carnivorous lineages that have been feuding for millions of years. But they are both females, and for that reason, they have more in common than they may suspect. This Iberian lynx is wearing a collar with a transmitter that biologists put on her in order to discover her secrets. The fox has come here to stay, and she's not going to let anyone force her out of her new home by the sea. Doñana doesn't fit into any geographical type. It's a wild crossroads that all the high-flying tourists on 2 continents dream of visiting at least once a year. But there is an even greater privilege, being born here. The young lynx takes his first long stroll alongside his proud mother. Someday he will hunt his own rabbits, and he will be a playboy among foxes, but not just yet. The river's sacrifice, as its banks disappear and it fans out, contributes to the festival of biodiversity found throughout the wetlands. New wings and claws begin to unravel the secrets of the great journey of life. There is a large-scale exchange of genes that some carry out in colonies in the trees, and others at water level, like this purple heron, whose rowdy kids are beginning life with fencing lessons. For birds like these, it's easy to fly the channels in the sky and to choose from up there if they want to roost in one place or another. They can even change their minds and leave again. But for our river traveler, there's no going back. She's gone through too much to get here, and like the current, she can't flow upriver. This is her place now, the place she has chosen to tell the sea her secret. Her 3 children on the beach were close to never being born. They will never experience the freezing cold, nor meet the golden eagle or the poison man, because they were born after the incredible journey of a survivor. Her fight is that of every mother. Wonders of evolution, able to create hope greater than any hardship. She won't be able to tell them what they owe to the river, but that doesn't matter, because this is just one of the thousands of stories reflected in the waters of the Guadalquivir.